So hello and welcome to Limitless You Talk with me, Katie, and I'm delighted to be joined by fellow funeral director, Scott Munn, who is also owner of Scott Munn and Co. Funeral Directors, as well as in conjunction with Anderson Maguire Funeral Directors, based in the Glasgow area. And Scott is also one of the founders for Men with Issues, Men's Mental Health Peer Support Group. Hope I've got all that. That was like a pure tongue twister to say.
You have indeed.
To say all that. But before we get into it and start, we share very much how well-being is important and things like that. And we work in an industry where realising we have to look after ourselves and things. But before we get into it and have a chat about things that I kind of thought about, who is Scott? Before we get started and all that, the big question.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me on, Katie. That's a hard one you've thrown me at the start there. I'd say right now, like since my kids have been born, it's dad first and foremost, and that means I'm loads of different things,
Yep.
But that's my number one focus, always the kids. My wife at home as well, obviously, but like the kids are just, I'm whoever I need to be for them. For
Yep.
any chance I can get to take all the other hats off that I need to wear.
Mm-hmm.
That's the one I wear all the time. That's the one that I just go to all the time. Just being a dad, I love being a dad and love having the kids around and all that. So I would say that's who I am. If I'm not being all the other things I need to be when I need to be them,
Like that's a good way of putting it. And you are a man of many different hats. I know that. I have insider trading on that. I know that. But I wanted to talk about, we've had many conversations about mental health and we've connected on a lot of different levels, the more awareness that we're raising
Sure.
within the industry. But mental health, and then specifically men's mental health, like the importance of men talking. But I suppose that comes in conjunction with your Men with Issues group. So I want to leave that to you because you were recently featured on Scottish News, which is absolutely fantastic for a group that started in early 2024. So, over to you of men and mental health, because again, you are male and you'll be able to give far more context than I would ever be able to give.
Sure. So I suppose it's for me, there's still just not enough people talking. Talking's a big thing and opening up's a big thing. And I think like particularly growing up in Scotland, west of Scotland, the culture, even going back like 10 years when I was kind of in my early 20s, it's still like it wasn't encouraged. Speaking up wasn't encouraged, talking wasn't encouraged, and you were just kind of told to deal with your emotions internally.
Yeah.
And I think that's a massive thing. Like growing up, for me, being a guy, like even being a young boy, even then, maybe not knowing enough in terms of how to deal with things and deal with certain emotions, but knowing that I shouldn't be talking about it, or certainly at the time feeling that way, and it's almost just, it's not that anybody had taught me that or showed me the wrong way to go. It was just like naturally, I think that was the mindset, like many other people. Growing up, it's just like you don't deal with that, you don't talk about that, it'll go away, it'll pass. And then getting into the industry, as you know, as you say, Katie, you've got some insider knowledge, given that you do the same thing.
Yeah.
Again, like it's for years it's been a kind of male-dominated environment. And I think a lot what I see from the male colleagues that I work with, they still don't speak up enough. So I think that the mental health piece for me, just it's a combination of things, but particularly or mostly around the fact that for years and years people have suppressed how they feel. They're not spoken about anything, and then it leads to people being in a point of crisis, or sometimes worse. And I think from own experience, the power of speaking up and the power of being in these rooms and being fortunate enough to share some of those experiences with people, it's incredible. And people who might feel that they're okay, having maybe had a traumatic event, or they could just be, not maybe feeling themselves at a moment in time. The release that they get from speaking about that, it's people can talk about it all day long, but see, until you experience it, I don't think it's something people fully understand. But there's still a massive stigma around doing that, and that's the problem.
Huge stigma, and we know that first and foremost. From the industry, you weren't allowed to say, Scott, I'm not okay. We couldn't have had the conversations that we've had. We couldn't have, we're both in a supportive role of a wellbeing group within our trade association for independent funeral directors. And even before COVID, for example, there is no way there would be anything like that. It would just be totally frowned upon. But because of all that and your experience of getting to talk, I think that ties in nicely of Men with Issues.
Absolutely. So The group was created at the start of the year to create a kind of safe space for people to do exactly that, just open up and talk. I don't think any of us really knew how it was going to go. Certainly didn't expect it to take off the way that it has. But I suppose the negative spin on that is that it shows how badly needed something like that is.
Yeah.
We're now at a place where we have people coming to the group that are signposted by their GP to come to the group. Some of the guys that come to the group have been waiting over 12 months for external support through the NHS. So it shows that there's really not enough of a a support mechanism there for people that are struggling with their mental health. The group, we had the first meeting back in, I think it was maybe the third week in January of this year, up in a gym in East Kilbride. Somebody very kindly given us the space. And I think we had about 12, 13 guys came. And to be honest, we were thinking it might just be the 5 or 6 sitting in the room. So at the time we were delighted with that, just about the fact that folk had opened their horizons to coming along to something like that. We very quickly discovered that it was something that folk really took value from. And we've got a range of, youngest person that's came, I think it's been about maybe 18, 19. And then we've had folk up in their 60s coming as well. And now the average attendance that we get is probably about 30, 35 every week. But some weeks we can have 40, 50. We've had over 60 come to a meeting as well. So, but it's really the power of the room. And to give you an example of that, when STV came, they kind of contacted us last minute to say, can we come and do a piece on you? It was on World Suicide Prevention Day, or for World Suicide Prevention Day. So we were obviously delighted to take part and of course, get an opportunity for some more exposure for the group. And they said to us, can you get some guys in the room? So we put it out kind of last minute, and thankfully, I think there was 7 of us that were able to do it. And they said, what do you do? And I said, well, we just sit and talk. And obviously there's a format to it. We start the meeting, there's a middle, there's a beginning, a middle and an end. We go through the housekeeping at the start. There's certain things that we don't talk about for obvious reasons. The most important thing being that we respect the room and the privacy of the room, because it is a safe space for people to open up, and we absolutely need to protect that at all costs. So we started just having a conversation, and it was just the 7 of us, the way we would at a meeting, but the same way we would if I met any of these guys in the street. We would start talking, and very quickly, because there's a trust there and it is a safe space, guys start to open up to the point where the reporter was overcome with emotion, and he actually had to stop the recording and go and take 10 minutes because he felt, I think he felt overwhelmed by the openness in the room. And I mean, we weren't, diving deep into some of the people there have, had significant events in their life. Other people are not in a good space. Some are in a better space than others. But even just being in the room and the power of sharing and the willingness for them to open up. And I think what he said to me, what he was more overwhelmed about was the fact that he was a complete stranger in that room, but because he was in that safe space, everybody still opened up to him. And it's people, he's 7 guys that he's never met before. And I think to myself, I take that model, Katie, and I think if I could apply that to so many people I know, you will know as well as I do, Katie. Imagine you and me were able to do that to the people that work in our industry, even the people that you and me know between us. Imagine the difference that would make to some of those people's lives.
It'd be amazing. Truly for them, not for us. For them, we've had the experiences that we would have loved to have had something like your men with issues. I've said that to you before, and I'm lucky enough. I do know some of the guys that come along. I know them through different channels, different networks, and things. And the difference, mate, for them to come and talk and be a part of something, especially men. Like I think we're highlighting this. Like I just find it so empowering that men are able to sit and chat about it instead of showing the bravado that I'm sure many in that room would have probably been around growing up and in different circumstances and situations, but to be able to just be themselves and be in a room with strangers and just be themselves like that is just incredible.
It's amazing. And I think, again, I say this every time I talk about the group, I say this, but it's because it's consistent and it happens every week. Somebody will be sitting in a room, and it could be somebody who comes every week, it could be somebody who's came for the first time, but they'll say something, and then they'll say, I've never told anybody that before. And that could be applying to their closest family. And it's people that come for the first time. There's no pressure for them to speak at the group. So people can just come and they can say their name. They don't even need to say their name. They can just come and be present and take the room in. And a lot of people come and say, I'm not going to say anything. I don't want to speak. And we say that, listen, that's fine. And 9 times out of 10, they end up towards the end of the meeting opening up and sharing. It might just be their name. Some people go on and tell us their whole story. It's just whatever they feel comfortable doing. But again, it's the feeling of that room. And it's not the literal room at our place at Anderson Maguire. It's the power that's created in any space that's safe, where guys sit and they actually understand. And I mean, we've got some guys, like a couple of big bears that come, that are professional bodybuilders, and and it's back to that whole thing of this. We shouldn't view it through that lens, but the world forces us to do so. So stereotypical views would dictate that a big muscly guy, a strong guy that's a family man, and he's the man of the house, this and that. He's not to be emotional in any way, shape, or form. He shouldn't have any problems, and he's got to be okay. And we talk often about the pressure that's put on men to be that figure. And that's maybe not by their partners or by their family, but it's just societal pressure.
Yeah.
And social media plays a part in that. All these things that, somebody feels they've got to be this person. And there's guys that have carried that burden for 20 years. And now finally they're getting a space to go, actually, do you know what? I'm not okay. And I really struggle with this, and this. And it might be something really small. It could be something massive. But the point is that they're encouraged to open up and let it out now. And you can physically see the relief on some of the people. You can physically see a change in some of these guys' posture, how they carry themselves, the way they speak. And I think that for me is incredible. When you can see a physical change in somebody by the release or the benefit of having that space. So that for me tells me everything I need to know, that we want to keep doing it and doing it as much as we can. And listen, we say all the time, we've created that space, but it's the guys that come and sit in that room every week. They're the people that make the meeting. The guys that share and get vulnerable, they're the people that create that space and give the room that power that it just allows that release,
Yeah. I think the way that you've certainly, like me, the power of talking, your power of talking, and you realising talking is created, helped create that. And I think that's like massive. And I remember asking you a few months ago when you just started doing it and it was getting kind of grown popular locally and things like that. And I said to you, how do you do it all? And I remember you quoted back to me, and it was like, sometimes that group on a Friday even helps you.
100%.
You're getting out of it exactly, not just that you've helped set it up, but you're going into it as someone that maybe needs to have a chat about something or get something off your chest. And I loved how you put that, because you can use it it's just showing that you're human. 100%. And I wrote down here and I was like, how do you do it all between professional and personal, Scott?
So again, that's a hard one, but I think it's like, and again, Katie, you'll be familiar with this because your background is kind of similar to mine in that sense. Growing up in the family business, and I used to really struggle with the supposed, and again, I'll do that, but the separation and the work-life balance model.
Yeah.
And let's be honest, running a business, you know that dance well. For me, given the nature of the business or the industry that we're in, those lines are blurred anyway, because people don't only need you between 9 and 5. So I think having that mindset from an early age has helped me process that as well. But it's like the way, I suppose the way I look at it now, Katie, is I try and, rather than put set times on things, it's more about enjoying the moments. So that for me, and this might seem strange to people that maybe do work a 9-to-5 job and don't work at the weekends and whatever, but for me, like, I'll get as much enjoyment out of having 40 minutes with my kids in the morning before I take them to school as I would being able to take them to the cinema on a Saturday night, because I understand now, I've got a better perspective on what the time means rather than what we do with that time, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I'm on a couple of different committees as well, and I do other stuff in the local community outside the work and outside of the group. But I just try and make the most of the time that I have with the people that matter the most. For me, I suppose what I'm trying to say is it all kind of snowballs into one. And I feel like as long as I get those moments that I need when I need them, then it allows me to do the other things that I need to do. And also, I've got a very understanding family at home. I do need,
which is huge.
Absolutely. My wife, she's very supportive in that sense, but also understands the nature of the business, but then understands the importance of the group and understands the importance of the other things that we do. So, it is hard though. It is hard at times, and I've never had the freedom Because even at a young age, again, you'll be familiar with this, but doing
never
on call,
have freedom. Yeah.
no, exactly. You're never far away from the phone. You're never far away from somebody needing you. So life is different. And again, that's a choice that we make to be a funeral director and be at a family's beck and call. And that's the purpose of what we do, but it doesn't make it any easier. It doesn't make it any easier when you're missing Christmas dinner, or you're not there on Christmas morning, or you're away, when the bells bring. I mean, I don't know how many years I've brought in the bells in a nursing home or some poor family's house where they've unfortunately lost somebody. And it's not about saying, "Oh, I'm missing," hug my name and my family. It's just like the reality of that situation. It's difficult sometimes.
Yeah. And I think it's important raising that awareness as well, because it is a lifestyle that we live.
Correct.
And someone's got to do it, but that doesn't mean we're not human at the end of the day. And it's raising that awareness, and that's how we do struggle. But then you've got your outlets by being involved in all these things, and the way that I can do this is like, we know what it's like to live in the present because we see the other side of that, and it all relates.
Absolutely.
That's why having the group must be really humbling to see everybody every week, because obviously we've been in the other side where people have only found their way of peace from their struggles as by taking their own life, and we have to then deal with that in a different sense, if I can say it like that.
Yeah, and again, Katie, unfortunately, what we get to see firsthand what that looks like for those people. And it's funny, but we've had people in the group share their experiences of being at that point, and the thing that I find really, it's hard to put it into words, but the thing that I struggle with is one of the common things that we see at the group with people who have been in that space is it's the sense of calm and peace that they feel when they're getting to that place. And that for me puts into perspective not how, if you don't deal with these things, how loud and difficult that can get, where that is the option that's given you the most peace, the thought of perhaps not being here. And that's quite a daunting way of putting it, but it's unfortunately the reality of the situation that we find ourselves in. And that's why more has to be done. And again, like you, Katie, it's probably worth noting for me with the group that's definitely a factor in my my keenness to help and do as much as we can, because we do get to see it for the other side. And you'll be the same, but people would be shocked at the amount of suicides that we would deal with. Like folk think that's maybe something that happens once in a blue moon. It's
doesn't.
Not. We see it. We see it every weekend here, and you think, wow, and I would say predominantly we see more young males.
Yeah.
In
my time,
in
it's
Glasgow
been
and the West. Yeah. So all these things, just it's a driver for me to crack on and do as much as we can.
Yeah, it's such a big topic, but the power is you have to talk. And I wrote like you highlighting the issue of well-being for us working within it. Context of we have to prioritise family, but we also have to prioritise ourselves, because if we can't be who we need to be for our families, our families can't get the most out of us. And it's like me doing my well-being courses, or I've worked with people that tried to commit suicide just prior to starting my course, and one individual, female individual, who tried to overdose with paracetamol, then came to the course a week later and felt that she could share that with me, and now is living a completely different life, going to the gym, spending time with her family, doing things she never imagined that she would be. And that's only because I was able to prioritise who I was to then help someone else. So it is spreading the same message. But what do you think we could be doing more of, apart from talking? So we need to, like, we've started the process, we've started saying, you know what, Scott, I'm not okay.
Yep.
What more can we then do?
I think people need to, we need to be putting things in place before people come to us.
Yeah.
So again, thanks to the group and also my own mindset. It's something we've worked on across our business for a couple of years now, but really trying to focus on the mental health piece for all colleagues across the business. And I'm using work as an example here, but that applies to your friends, your family, checking in, and I was speaking to somebody who a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking about how if you ask somebody, you all right? And like in Glasgow, you say to somebody, you all right? And they go, aye. Now that person could be in the worst place in the world, but I guarantee they'll go, aye, I'm all right. I am sound, mate. They go, no, you're all right. And they go, aye, I'm fine, but they're not. And I was talking to somebody and he said, I never ask anybody how they are. He said, ask them how they sleep. And he says, I say to somebody, how did you sleep last night? And they go, aye, great. And he says, I take that as like, well, they're all right then. Not all the time, but the majority of situations, it's a pretty good indicator. And then he'll go, how did you sleep last night? And somebody goes, oh, I had a terrible sleep. Why is that? And then it opens the conversation that way. And I thought, that's a good way of looking at it. In terms of, because like people, it's great to be there to be able to help people when they need it. But as I say, like we're only facilitating this when somebody's coming in crisis. And we're trying to change that. But I think in general, to answer your question, that we need to be focusing more on that across the board, whether that's checking in with your friends, checking in with your family, and encourage that conversation. And I know it's like you say, we've started that bit about talking, but rather than waiting until somebody comes and then us presenting talking as an option, we should be talking anyway, and we should be checking in on each other and taking the time. And I think putting there's more of a piece around it being acceptable to not be okay. There's still so much work that has to be done there. How do we do that? What does that look like? I don't really know.
Yeah, in an ideal world, it's all daisies and roses, but I don't think it'll ever be like that. I think it takes the likes of who we are, using our industry. I mean, I know we talk about our industry a lot and things like that, but it's a fact. Like we can use our industry as a good example of I don't want to phone Scott at midnight on Hogmanay and explain that I've lost a relative.
Yeah.
I don't want to go for it. I want to make sure that that time that I've got with someone, or that time is fulfilled, full of happiness. There's a level of comfort, enjoyable. There's contentness. Like that's the way that it should be. And whether that is me explaining to that person, do you know what? I'm not feeling okay today, or I just need 5 minutes to myself, or having more of that power to be like, do you know what? I'm actually not okay. And I think you would get more respect and power out of that for yourself, not for anyone else, just purely for yourself, for being able to do that, no matter how big or small your struggle is.
No, I couldn't agree more. You're absolutely right. And it's just, unfortunately, like the mindset of most people is the polar opposite of that.
Yeah, unfortunately, I wish I could just go, please, but it's not that simple.
Aye, absolutely. And it's like one of those kind of bang your head off the wall moments when you speak to people, and it's like sometimes I feel like you can see it before they even speak, and it's like, unfortunately that's like the nature of, it's human nature, I suppose, isn't it? It's really difficult.
I think what I wanted to ask you is, obviously I know that you're a dad and knew this before, and obviously the kids grown up, being young that they are just now, but grown up in this world, in this society in West Coast Scotland that we're not exactly the most positive area. We are a very deprived area. What would you want the kids to learn or have lessons on or take away that they can use as they grow up into adulthood about not just talking, but, well-being and mental health as something positive for them throughout their life?
I think, first of all, an understanding of the importance of it, because again, like I'll be honest, like in my younger years, I never thought about mental health.
No.
Never. Like I never thought about it. Nobody ever spoke about it. And again, that's not like a criticism of my parents or anything like that. It's just, it was life. We didn't really speak about those things. Certainly not when I was growing up. Nobody, like at school, there was never a conversation around that. There was never any awareness at all. And there was also never, I suppose for my kids, I would like them to be more self-aware.
Yeah.
Because like you learn things for your parents, and I'd like to think, I wasn't a bad kid or anything, but nobody at school ever had any sort of self-awareness of what the way they behaved or the way they spoke about people might make them feel. People knew when they were being mean. That stuff happens all the time, but actually, like a comment you make to somebody could be the difference between them having a good week, a good month, a good year, or a bad week, month, or year. And I think, like, again, growing up, I already teach the kids about the importance of being kind, just being nice, listening, and understanding that some people might not think the same way they do, but it doesn't mean they're bad people. At the same time, you want to have an understanding that they stick up for themselves and they don't they don't upset people, and there is a difference in opinion. They've got an awareness of that. When my daughter does, she's old enough to do so. But yeah, I think self-awareness and an understanding of mental health, and then it's back to the piece of, I would want them to be in a position where they can always come and tell me anything. Yeah. Even if it's they don't want to go into detail, but they're not okay and they want to speak to somebody. It might not be me, but if they know that I can facilitate that conversation for them, whether it's with me or somebody, the right person, that's the important thing. And again, that's not a criticism of my upbringing, but again, it's just culture and life. Yep. Like I would never have went to my mum and went, I feel a bit sad, and I don't know why. You know, like, when maybe that was things I experienced when I was younger. Whereas I would like to just drill it into my daughter that she can do that at any time, and that's totally okay. That's totally okay.
I couldn't do that. I couldn't do that until it was too late, in the sense of I was going through it, the panic, and everything had started.
Your journey had already started in that path, Katie.
And it's that old expression of, again, it's a very funeral industry expression, you just get up and you get on with it.
Aye, absolutely. And I think there comes a point where that it works to a degree, but even the strongest of people, if you're on that path that we've both had a bit of an, albeit different, but both had an experience of, you can get on it for so long, but there comes a point when it's a hard path to walk down. You know, and you've obviously done amazing in terms of your journey and where you're at. You've obviously used that to then go on, and you're now helping other people.
Yeah.
And you were strong enough to do that. But I suppose, like, there's maybe people on that path that don't know that's an option, that don't know how to get off the path, that, you know, they don't see the end. And
they're not ready. They're not ready to see the end, or they're very judgmental, very negative. I had a funeral director, believe it or not, who told me that there would be anything like coaching or well-being or mental health shouldn't be mentioned in our industry. To me, that was like, well, actually, you probably do need a little bit of, come on, we'll have a conversation. You're, and just because you're putting like your defences up straight away, your defence has to come down sometime. It can't always. It can't always be there. Can't always be there.
And I think that, like, people like ourselves, whether we like it or not, Katie, it's on us particularly. And again, this is quite industry specific. You know, you obviously do other things, I do other things as well. But it's the one industry that I think we both know enough about to know that if we don't do something about it, it won't change.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't want to be, 50 and whatever, how many years, I'm not even going to think that far, but I don't want to be in my 50s and it still being the way that it is. And I think if you do that for everyone, because you treat everyone as an equal, then it makes it so much easier for anyone that is in the industry at the end of the day. That's how I think of it, like that. And everyone that's come on the podcast, I've asked the same question, and I'm going to ask you the same question. What do you feel are your superpowers?
That's a hard one as well. No, I think a new superpower that I've gained is a bit to having a much better self-awareness, and then an understanding of the importance of listening.
Wow, that's okay. And what way, like, your understanding of listening?
So I think, like, people would talk to me before, and, like, it's like if you're dealing with something in the office, like, and again, it's very time and business critical for us. If we are getting an instruction from a family or something, we need to listen. But now I find myself, like, really listening to that person and finding out a bit more about maybe who we're caring for, or it could be in the group setting when somebody's talking to me and, they're telling me something, they're telling me a story, but actually what they're trying to tell me is something completely different. And actually just really focusing and, like I say, listening to what people are saying. Even giving somebody that ear to know they're listened to. I've seen firsthand the power in that and what that does for people, and that it was so powerful for me. So that's why I would liken that to a superpower. Because like if I have a conversation with somebody and they know that I've listened to what they've said, I might not have an answer, I might not have a response, but if I've listened, I can see the benefit in people, especially if you're somebody that maybe feels like you haven't been listened to before. So yeah, I think I would liken that to a superpower.
I would say that's a very good superpower, and something that again goes in hand with how you feel about please talk.
Absolutely.
Like that's it goes hand in hand, and I think anyone listening back to our conversation can take so much away from it. But just for anyone or any male that might be listening, just to leave it with obviously some details about the Men's with Issues group, social media wise, just where they can reach out to yourselves or come along, whatever.
Absolutely. So we've got 2 meetings that run every week. One on a Friday night at Anderson McGuire's head office in Palmadie, and then one on a Sunday night at EKYM football ground. So the full addresses and all that can be found on Facebook, Instagram. We're at MWI_men. And a lot of people are quite apprehensive, I suppose, Katie, about coming because they see the picture of there can be 30 odd guys in the room. But it's such a welcoming environment, and I can't stress enough that there's absolutely no pressure to speak. So people maybe don't want to come because they think they have to talk. They don't even need to say their name. Just come and be in the room if you think it's something that might help you. If you're not sure, I can't stress that enough. Please come along and experience the room and then make a decision. But I've never known anybody to come and not stay or come back. So, and also, like, we're contactable through the page if anybody's got any questions or folk are struggling. We're very clear about the fact that none of us are medics, doctors, psychologists, but we do have resources and we can signpost people. But in the first instance, just getting people into the room and you know, like I say, giving them an ear. It's the best thing that we've been able to do so far. So I would encourage anybody that's curious to reach out, contact us, or come along.
I think that sums it up pretty well, Scott. Thank you very much for joining me for our conversation.
Brilliant. Thanks for having me.